You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Dr. Erin Wilson. Welcome, Erin.
How's it going? I'm so glad to be here with you today, Jim. Thanks for having me.
It's going good. You know, Erin, as a single guy who's been married twice, when I see relationship intelligence, I go, wait a minute, are you sure this is I'm supposed to be interviewing this person? I need her help probably, but so we'll get to that.
You're actually not the first person to tell me that. I had a participant recently go, had you come into our office and told us this before, I might actually still be married. So I get it.
I like it. I'm all ears because I say, you know, I've been blessed a lot of things in my life. I've got everything that I could want to be happy in life. But I would tell you, I'm just not great at relationships. But before we step into that pile of whatever we might step into, let's tell everybody a little bit about you and your background and kind of what sparked your passion for leadership and relationship intelligence in the first place.
Absolutely. So hi, y'all. Again, my name is Dr. Erin Wilson, and I am the CEO and principal consultant at Design Ideal Consulting, where I have an amazing job. I get the opportunity to work with teams and individuals and leaders in order to help them through some major components. The first one is using strengths in order to understand their unique leadership style and the strength that they bring to in every situation that they're in. I use relationship intelligence to help people make the impact that they want to make and ultimately to get the results that they want. And then I also help leaders change their thought process and mindset around using rest as a strategy instead of a reward. And so I love the work that I get to do, but talking about relationship intelligence is one of my absolute favorite things. So I'm so glad that you have me here today to be able to do that.
I love it. You know, it's funny that you bring up rest because I have this Bible devotional that I do with like 15 guys around the country. And yesterday it was talking about how Jesus rested, you know, like you said that, but he rested to kind of get his thoughts together to, you know, get ready to do the work that he was here to do. Right. So like talk about that. Cause I love that nobody talks about rest in leadership or performance. But I also tell people when I've been like on this journey of getting healthier and healthier, and the days off, I need those days off, right? But not so much just to recover. It helps me plan my next strategy. So talk about rest and performance and leadership.
Absolutely. Almost exactly what you say. We see people who are incredibly high performing, chasing titles, doing all of the things, but yet exactly like you talked about, we talk about the Bible, and one of the gifts that God gives us that he specifically mentions as a gift to us, for my Christian friends out there, is rest. And we don't take advantage of it, right? So it's incredibly important. The same way you talk about with muscle recovery, our brains need specific time for us to be able to maximize and to come with creativity, for us to be curious about things around us, and for us to show up honestly as our best selves, right? So I and a co-author of mine, Dr. Kelly Dixon, shout out to her, we wrote a book together. Actually, it's so funny because we were talking about relationship intelligence, but I'm also getting to talk about strategic rest today, which is also one of my favorite subjects too. So we wrote a book because we started to really study for ourselves as people who were exhausted, who were executives. How can we use rest not as something that we keep going, this weekend I'm going to get to it, or I'm going to wait 6 months until my next vacation? How are we looping in rest as a part of the thing that sets us apart as leaders, right? So we literally wrote a framework about it called the NAP framework, which makes me giggle every time I say it, but it's incredible incredibly important to have a framework for leaders to understand that they need to nurture rest and what that looks like. And there's components of that they need to assess as well as prioritize. And if you do that cycle constantly, it'll help you really weave out the ways for you to put strategic rest, not just as something that you're trying to hope to do, but as literally a part of your schedule. And you will see that you will start to be able to maximize things in every area and corner of your life.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because there's so much your background is so cool. There's so much to talk about. So I may, being ADHD, I might bounce around here a little bit,
I
but
love it.
like you call relationship intelligence $1 million skill. What exactly, like, let's just kind of define relationship intelligence, but it as it's different from emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. So let me break it down and tell people why it even matters, right? Because I love emotional intelligence. Intelligence is incredibly important. But to me, even if you're emotionally intelligent and can't necessarily move that specifically into relationships to ultimately get the results that you want or get things done, then is it really helpful, right? So, relationship intelligence is exactly about understanding not just what motivates people, but how to really connect them in a way that builds trust, in a way that builds collaboration. And then again, like I talked about, results, right? So, it's about knowing when to lean in. It's also about knowing when to step back and also like when to flex your style without losing exactly who you are. And in leadership and in life, right? Because leadership and life to me go hand in hand. That is everything. So ultimately, if someone asks one specific, Erin, give me one line about relationship intelligence, I would say relationship intelligence is the difference between being heard and being remembered, right? And as leaders, we want to be remembered.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. So, can you give me a story where applying relationship intelligence transformed a team or a business, their outcome?
Absolutely. I can do too, right? So the first time I got introduced to relationship intelligence was really as a manager, right? So I had taken this really cool assessment. So one of the really great ways for you to kind of see your motivation value system, which is a huge part of relationship intelligence, is an assessment that I use with teams called SDI, right? So or strength deployment inventory is what it's called. So I used that with teams, and it was the first time before I was even a partner and did this assessment for other people. I actually took it in a session. So I found out that I am highly motivated by a high blend of performance and process. Okay. So I want people to put that on the shelf for just a second because I'll tell you why that matters. So as you think about relationship intelligence, one key component of it is how people are motivated, right? So humans like us are motivated in a blend of three different ways. The first one is people, the next one is process, and the final one is performance, okay? So together we have a blend of those. So some of us have a high blend of people, and those are folks who really are interested in how things impact people, right? Maintaining harmony sometimes in their groups. You have someone who is perform a really high performance and they're like, let's get things done, right? You
Yeah.
got people who are highly motivated by process and they are really focused on make it make sense. How does this work, right? So for me, I have a high blend of two. It's performance and process, right? Okay. So I manage someone who was really highly motivated by people. I am very unmotivated by people, which sounds wild as someone who presents incredibly extroverted, right? But people don't motivate me. Performance and process does, right? So I have to remember as a leader to really make myself think about how does this impact people, right? So I was working with someone and she was highly motivated by people. So I started to realize that our relationship wasn't great. She wasn't doing the things that I was asking her to do because everything I presented to her was in how this would help our performance, how this would help our process. And I would never talk about how it would impact the people, right? Once I started to understand that, I started to talk to her, even the same concepts that we were doing, the same projects, the same whatever. But I would say, this is how this will impact this group of people. Or if we do this well, this will end up like this for folks. She went from being the employee I was about to fire, right, to the employee that I would hire over and over and over again. And it came from that key thing of understanding not just how people are motivated, but how literally to use it as communication in order to do it. So I get teams all over the country that say the exact same thing. When I start coaching managers, one of the first things that I go is, you should also allow me to do this assessment for everyone on your team. So now they have a whole playbook for how to say and communicate these things to the people they work for. And you start to see the impact that they're able to get, the money, the sales, all of those things start to shoot through the roof because this person is able to lead them better, not just through their lens.
I love that. It's funny that the word motivation, because I'm a lot older than you, but when I was starting in business in the 80s, there was Tony Robbins and there was Brian
Mhm.
Tracy and Zig Ziglar. And it would be like, hey, we're going to go to this 1 day, 3 day, whatever thing, and we're going to get motivated. And I remember our managing partner at the time, I was like 22, 23 years old. And I said, what do you think of these meetings? And he says, I don't believe in motivation. I believe that you create an atmosphere where people motivate themselves, which is not in contradiction with what you just said. So what you're
Mhm.
saying is, right, you're meeting someone where they are, what motivates them. But like,
Correct.
we were building a financial planning firm. So there was this firm in Idaho, okay, that if you did a certain amount of business, you got a belt buckle, big old belt buckle that now maybe that'd be cool in Texas too. But like,
That would be cool.
I'm from LA, so you would not be caught dead in that big belt buckle thing. But and wouldn't motivate me, is my point. But the guys that were in Boise, that motivated those men and women. They loved the belt buckle, and I even asked them, "Do women want the belt buckle too?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, they want the belt buckle." So uh, I love that. What you're certified in core strengths, 5 behaviors, everything DISC. Is there one of those that you lean on the most to help leaders level up? And if so, why? If not, like, tell us just a little bit about those tools.
Absolutely. So I would definitely say that I use several of them in partnership, right? One of the ones that I get a lot of requests for, of course, is the relationship intelligence piece. Just like you talked about, we've had this mindset about us as leaders being able to motivate people when honestly people are motivated themselves, right? Matter of fact, people literally experience conflict because their motivation value systems are attacked, right? So everyone has something that is motivating them. It's just different. It can be different. There's actually 7 different ways that people can be motivated, right?
I
So
love that.
as we walk along different people, it's important for us to figure out what those are so that we can talk with them in a way in which it hits more than other folks, right? So yes, the assessment that I use the most in my business is the SDI, right? It's simply because it kind of gives you a playbook for my leaders to kind of flip through and go like, I'm having a conversation with this person. It also provides people the opportunity and some really great tools to set you up for success in conversations. It even provides information about how to send emails to a specific person, right? Like you can kind of look in the portal and click on that person and look at pain points that you guys may have, from even their what are their overdone strengths. So that one is one that I really do use quite often, right? 5 behaviors is incredibly important because as teams start to do work to create foundation for who they are, it really helps to inform teams about where they are as a team and where they need to go, right? In order to be cohesive, because that's always the goal to me of a good team, is when you're cohesive, you're able to be, to meet the goals that you have, right? And disc is fantastic too. To me, disc is always really good, especially if you have team players who may not necessarily, they may be at the same company, but maybe not a huge part of a team that works together constantly. So each of them have their own strengths. But if I had to say the one that I use the most, it's definitely SDI.
Love it. Aaron, it's funny. I was thinking of the tools that you use and the way that you describe them. I'm a big golfer, so like I always say, excuse me. I always say, let's say you and I were going to go play Augusta tomorrow, and I gave you the choice of one of two things, right? Which for anybody out there that's not a golfer, Augusta would be like the Valhalla. Well, there is a course that I belong to called Valhalla, but it'd be like the heaven. If heaven has a golf course, which I'm sure it does, it's better than Augusta. But on earth, the best we can get is Augusta. Okay, so we were going to go play that, and I gave you the choice of either Tiger Woods' swing or his clubs. And let's assume his clubs are the best clubs that you could, you'd go with his swing, right? Because he could beat us with your clubs, my clubs, anybody's clubs. So
Sure.
like, it's like using the tools. And so like, what I love about that is you would never show up at the golf course with just a driver because you're not going to score very good. So having these tools in your toolbox, in your golf bag, that's what I mean. A golf club, when guys are always trying to like protect them, I'm like, these are tools. They hit the dirt. They're going to scratch and ding and stuff. But so talk to me, because obviously you have this great background. You're super. I love your energy about the subject, because I can hear the passion in your voice.
Yeah.
Is walk me through a typical engagement. I'm sitting in the audience and I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a Fortune 500 C-suite person that's trying to figure out how do we get our team to the next level. Walk me through a typical engagement, what it looks like from the first conversation to the final outcome.
Absolutely. So first thing, so of course I am not a golfer, right? But exactly like you talked about, to me, no matter how great your golf clubs are, if you don't use them and know how to use them, then all of that doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
to me, that's exactly the conversation that I start out having with executives, right? It doesn't matter how great the people are on your team if you don't know how to communicate with them, if you don't know how to create relationships that's going to help you get the results that you want, then what does it really matter that everybody shows up here every day, right? So that's often what I talk about with them, is being able to maximize, really being able to understand how people are motivated, and leveraging that in order to take them to the next level, right? So to me, a great boss, right? A great supervisor, a great C-suite, whoever it is, one of the key components that they do well is that they hire people who are experts. Right? If
Yep.
you're working for someone who hasn't hired you as to be an expert in whatever it is, then it may be time to figure out something new, right? So to
Yeah.
me, a great supervisor, a great person who is a boss, looks for people who are experts or really great at what they do, and they do one key thing: they remove roadblocks, right? As a
Love it.
leader, that was always what I did. I would make sure I hired people who were good at what they did, made sure they had all the tools they needed to be successful. And then my job from that point became to remove roadblocks for them. Sometimes it would be help them create a relationship in another department to get this done. Maybe it was someone in my network that I knew that they needed to connect with in order to do something. Maybe it was finding extra money in order to be able to do the project well. But my job as a leader is to be able to do do that? So I have a conversation with them exactly about that. This is helping you remove roadblocks so that your people can be successful, right? So once we do that, teams usually bring me in. Sometimes I do executive coaching with that specific manager. And when we do that, I always start my executive coaching with that assessment. So with SDI, once they see that information about themselves, then they're literally kind of salivating to be like, I want to know this about my team, right? So I
Yeah,
don't even
yeah.
have to sell hard once people usually have that, and I do a debrief with them about their results. They're like, we want to do it with our executive managers, right? Then the executive managers go, oh my gosh, I need to know this about my middle managers, right? So then there you are there already 3 or 4 times with the same kind of information. But then it also shifts to you being able to coach people around that, for you to do refreshes, for me to also go in and make sure that they're optimizing how to use that to give them new tools to do it. So for sure, I get the opportunity in my role to spend a lot of time helping them shape what they are as a team and who they want to be, because the information that comes from that assessment is not just personal. It also provides me the ability to be able to see what the strengths are of the team cohesively. That one is a conversation that sometimes is so hard for teams to hear, when they're a team who's like, we want to get all of these things done. And then we look at the top of their strengths portrait and there's no strengths there that get things done. Then we have
Yeah.
to have a conversation about how do we pick up some new strengths, right? Or how do we bring someone else who has those to the top, so that if you're actually trying to do things that will help you perform, you're either bringing up someone who has those strengths easily, right? Or we're looking at a complete transformation as a team. So honestly, in one kind of sentence, it usually sells itself. Once I give it to folks and they see that life-changing information, it's really easy for them to go, I want to gift this to other people. And I also want it to have in my playbook so that I'm able to use it with my team.
Isn't that I love that answer. Isn't it funny how like there's a new, like, if you take what an assessment, whatever assessment that you take and whatever it's for, right? It could be, and if you find it valuable, you want to share it, right? Like, you want to tell people, hey, here's how you talk to me. I want to know how to talk to you. But when you
Yeah.
think about relationship and communication, and I think this is why everybody like jumps on this part of it, is because we feel like we could all be better at communication and relationship, right? Is it When we really think of the things that hold us back in our lives, it's our relationships, when we're struggling in our relationships. And I kid around about being divorced twice, but it's communication. It's not having, somebody asked me the other day, like, what are you looking for? And I said, you know, and they said, a healthy relationship. And I said, yeah, explain to me what that looks like, because I see people that are in relationships, and let's just use personal relationships for a second. But I mean, I see a lot of people in business relationships that are not happy. But when you see a lot of people in their 60s and 70s that are in marriages, and I think, gosh, are they really happy? Like, are they just roommates? Or is there passion? Is there intimacy? Is there spirituality? Is everything in alignment? And so when you think of it from a business standpoint, when they are in alignment, they stand out. So this is a long way to get to a short question. Is when they're in alignment in a personal relationship, they stand out. When they're in alignment in a professional environment, they stand out. We are in awe of that. So tell me, like, maybe a specific example of a client who had a big breakthrough in how they lead, and like, what was the difference and what was the outcome?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I want to tell you kind of a common mistake, right? That people make in relationships that hurt trust or progress that they're making, right? I think that's incredibly important, because that was exactly what this executive was facing. So, a big one is that people often assume that everyone is motivated the way that they are. right? That is one of the biggest mistakes that I think people make in relationships, period. Some people want speed, some people want details, some people want harmony, right? And we often ignore that. And when we do, it breaks trust without us even realizing it. So, one of the executives that I was working with, she was leading her team. She was in the nonprofit sector, right? And so, for her, she assumed everyone that she hired, because she would say, oh, I hired this person because I felt like they were similar to me, right? Or that we all, because we're all cool and we're vibing, right,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
our workspace, that everything should be good. We should be able to move things forward. But I literally feel like they don't hear me at all when I tell them to do things, right? So I started to ask her questions about people, or asking her what she was saying in order to do it. Once, to me, we had done her assessment and I pointed out to her how she was motivated, I explained to her that you are consistently telling people what you need done with the mindset of how you specifically are motivated, not taking into consideration that other people may need other things. So I want you to start paying attention to the people who you work with, specifically doing one-on-ones more often with them, and getting the information that they are providing for you. Are they telling you more about the process that they did in order to get to something? Are they telling you that these are the results that I got, right? Are they telling you about how it impacted people? And then I want you to start gleaning that information to start talking to them in that same language, right? So once she started to do that, things absolutely changed in her office. I even had people who worked for her go like, I don't know what you did to this lady, but thank you for what you did, right? And I literally, it was coming from that motivated piece. And I've had that over and over and over with leaders that I work with, specifically through executive coaching. But that's exactly what it is. That thought process that everyone is motivated like us. It's kind of like love languages, right? You're talking about relationships quite often. And so I often think about how love languages are fantastic. But one of the things is we tend to love people the way we want to be loved and
Yeah.
not the way that they desire to be loved, which causes a lot of issues with us in our relationships. Well, the same thing happens with relationship intelligence. We tend to talk to people, to do things for people the way we would prefer, instead of seeking to understand what they need in order to keep our relationship great, and then ultimately get the results that we want from that relationship. So, a final thing too is that she was also assuming that, and this is another mistake that a lot of leaders make, assuming and confusing silence with agreement.
Ooh.
Just because someone is silent about something does not mean that they agree with you, or that they may not be experiencing conflict, right? So,
Yeah.
the fastest way for us to lose trust with people at work is to make everyone play by your rule book instead of figuring out what their rule book is and using that as the way that you play.
I love it. I love it. All right, Erin. So I'm sitting in the audience. I'm interested. How do I find you? How do I engage with you? What's the process?
Absolutely. So, the best way, if you want to bring me in for an engaging session with your team, especially around relationship intelligence or strategic rest, I also do things about that, as well as helping leaders find their unique strengths and leaning into those. You can find me at my website, designidealconsulting.com, and I'll make sure that I get that information to you so you have it. I also do a weekly show on Sunday at 10 a.m. So, before you head to church, you can pop in on your way over. And I talk about leadership and life. It's called Power Nap Live. And so I'd love for people to subscribe over there. And other than that, you can find me on LinkedIn as well, where I drop gems about leadership and relationship intelligence all day, every day.
I love it. I love this show. That sounds cool. I want to. We'll put all that in the show notes, audience, and we'll have
Perfect.
everything there. Again, man, I really just love your passion and your intelligence and your knowledge of this. Because when somebody comes to me and they're talking, and I'm going to help them grow their wealth or their freedom or their financial freedom, and really try to stop exchanging time for money, or get to choose what they want. Obviously, if I gave you $1 billion, I guarantee you're going to still do what you do, because I can tell you love it.
100%.
And I
100%.
want people to have that. I don't want you to stop serving other people, but I want you to not have to pay your bills and have the lifestyle that you want to have. So like
Yes.
when I'm helping people with that, it's really like removing the a lot of the misinformation. And so like you need somebody that's gone through this a million times, like I'm sure you have, and go, oh,
Yeah.
okay, because I have a friend who's a neurosurgeon, and he says there's only so many things that go wrong with your brain, right? So like even though you think that's like really complicated, it's the same way in your business or my business. There's only so many things that go wrong.
Yeah.
But throughout these years of education and experience and everything else, Erin, what's the best advice anybody's ever given you?
Oh man. Let's see. The best advice that anyone has ever given me, there's two things, right? Earlier in life, it was to literally be myself, right?
Yeah.
And you would think that that would not be profound, but in the world that we live in, there's so many people that are seeking to be like other people, and literally being who I am has allowed me to build a six-figure business. It's allowed me to be successful in my careers, understanding my unique strengths, right? When it got deeper for me than just being who I was, it was also using self-awareness to understand it, is what it evolved into. And then tapping into that to create the lifestyle that I wanted has been something that I've been able to do. And I want to gift that to as many leaders and people as possible. So that's why I do the work that I do. But also, I think one of the second pieces is that rest is not what takes you out of the game, right? It's what makes me work smarter and not harder. And so I would say those two pieces are really the most important things that people have said to me.
It's funny. Right as we speak, I have a sauna in my garage, and I'm having a new sauna put in a room in my house, and I have like one of those really cool massage chairs coming in a week, and it's like my restoration room, like is what I call it, right?
Yes.
Because every that's the one thing that I've realized is if all disease and illness comes from stress, and I'm
Mhm.
not doing anything to relieve my stress. And that doesn't mean,
Yep.
have 3 cocktails a night. That's not really relieving stress. That's
It's
masking
not.
it, right? But
Absolutely.
but sitting in the sauna, getting that massage chair,
Yeah.
listening to some
Mhm.
meditative music, prayer. But I go in
Yes.
there in the mornings, and I go in there in the evenings, and it's amazing how that rest and that
Mhm.
restoration just helps my brain. 30 minutes of
Mhm.
sitting alone and not saying a word, the last 5 minutes of that is like magic. It's like I start to think like clarity. I get the I mean, it's just
Yes.
so cool. So yeah, I think
It's
I love
game changing. I tell
game
people,
changing.
if you can think of things when things are moving around you, then imagine what could come to you, what can be said to you by God, literally, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
many of my business ideas, so many of business ideas for other people, so much of the advice, so many phenomenal things have come to me because I really do prioritize both rest and also really taking time to just really think about, like, to meditate on his word. But I
yeah.
could go on that all day.
No, but I mean, you're so right, and it's like it's so important. It's to me, it's my mental health. It's like
Yeah.
the gym in the morning, and that alone time is just it's necessary. And when I
Worth
don't
everything.
have it, I get overwhelmed. I get and I'm
Yeah.
not a good leader, and I'm not a good friend, and I'm not a good partner. But when I have it, I feel like it's not fair to the rest of the world, because it's like I like get really laser focused.
Yes, that's the thing that I tell people too, right? Oftentimes people go, "I feel guilty when I rest." And I go, "You should that's you should place that guilt on the fact that you show up as the worst version of yourself when you're not rested."
I
Right?
love
That you're
that.
not
Absolutely.
giving people the best version of who you could be when you don't. And so you should feel guilty when you don't rest.
I love it. I love it. All right, Erin, last question. If God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
People are probably going to giggle at this one, but honestly, when I think about that question, the thing that pops into my mind is not some big. I've read, of course, I have a doctorate, and so I've read tons of books
Yeah.
in programs. I've written a book. I read constantly, of course, to stay up on leadership and human development. But honestly, if I had to pick one book that has always stayed with me, it has been, and I can't think of who wrote it, but it's a book called I Like Myself. And it's
Ah,
all about authentic. It's a children's book, and it's really called I Like Myself. And it's about being authentically who you are. And I feel like in this season, we are called to be authentically who we are, to understand our unique strengths, to understand who we are in relationships with people, to keep those strong, and ultimately make the impact that we want to make, to use our time and talent to make the world a better place, because we need it so much right now. So for me, and I wish I could think of who the author was, shout
we'll
out to
find it.
whoever you
Yeah.
are, but it's a children's book called I Like Myself. And I think if more people like themselves right now, it would be a much better place.
I,
We would all be in a much better place today, right?
I love it. I agree with you 100%. You know, what's funny is my book, when somebody asks me that question, is Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And so it's not a
Yeah, okay.
children's book, but it's not a book that somebody would think. And the whole reason is Jonathan didn't want to be a seagull, right? He just didn't want to just be this ordinary seagull. He wanted to fly and do tricks and do all this other stuff.
Yeah,
And so growing up really poor in Los Angeles, I didn't want to be that, right?
yeah,
I was living in Inglewood and and people living in Palos Verdes. I wanted to be them. So
yeah.
I'm sure Palos Verdes is not perfect, but when you're in Inglewood, it looks like
It
it.
feels like it, right?
Yeah, Manhattan Beach. I mean, I wasn't picky. I could have chosen a lot of those places, but they weren't. You know, like I wanted to be something that I wasn't born to be, I guess.
Yeah.
And thank God above that
Yeah.
he blessed me and I didn't stay there. So
Yep.
I love your answer because I don't mind when somebody says rich dad, poor dad or something like that, because a lot of people say those
Yeah.
books because it
Good book.
changes your
Yeah.
thinking. But
Yeah.
one thing that we learn in life is that most of the things that we're told is really a lie. It's like the majority's
Yeah.
never been right about anything. You have to be in
Yeah.
the minority, and the way to be
Yeah.
in the minority with as a leader is to
Yep.
hire somebody like
Yep.
Erin to help you and coach you. Even Tiger Woods,
Yes.
who we brought up earlier, um,
Yeah.
is has a coach, right? Like
Yes.
now he's kind of coaching some of the younger players, but when he was young, it was his dad, and then Butch Harmon and Hank Haney. I mean, he had these different coaches that helped him become the greatest player of all time. So,
Absolutely.
if you're out there in the audience and you think that you can benefit, and I would tell you everyone could benefit from listening
Everyone.
to Erin and her approach, is get on that Sunday morning thing. We're going to put all the particulars in there, 10 o'clock. I'm assuming that's Central.
Central
And
Standard Time. That's right.
that's right. And so, and listen and learn, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing is you mentioned is I the best advice I ever got was from a janitor, and I don't even know if this is true, but he said if you read an hour a day about any subject, in 6 weeks you'll know more than 99% of the world.
I
And I
believe that.
thought, wow, just reading an hour a day, I can do that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and so I started doing it at like 20 years old or 18 years old or something.
Wow.
And and so that's another thing is, sometimes the messenger is not, is the janitor, right? Again,
Yes.
so I love that story
Absolutely.
because you have to have respect for everybody. You don't know when they're going to give you the best advice you've ever gotten. So Erin,
Absolutely.
I love your passion. I love your knowledge. I love your personality that comes through on this. It's like I can imagine after working with somebody or a workshop, people are feeling sky high, ready to conquer the world. So thank you for the work
I'm your
that you do.
girl. You want
Yeah.
engaging facilitation that people are still talking about years later. You give me a call when you're ready.
I see it. I see it. If as I go throughout my day and think about teams, I'm going to definitely think of what teams could work with you. But so thank you so much for being here, audience. Thank you. I mean that we went a little longer than normal, but I mean that was just quick and engaging, and I feel like there was no it was great. So thank you, Erin. And audience, we're going to end this like we do every week with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Whatever you think about, you become.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.